I have been very fortunate to have had a lot of different mentors through different stages of my life. But most notably, my friends, Mike and Pat McCoy, their brothers, were really foundational in like transforming me into who I am. And I would say Mike, who unfortunately did pass away in 2014, he was very influential because he was very subtle. He would say things such as, "Hey, I really think you should do this." And being very young and naive when I was in my 16, 17, 18, early 20s, you think that you have all this time in the world and you're like, sure, why not? I'll go do that. You have no fear because you have nothing to lose. And he knew that I wanted to be involved in, EMS. And so he actually is the one that really introduced me into disaster medicine and disaster management. He and his brother Pat were some of the founders of the current team we have now. So back however many I want to say 15 plus years ago, potentially even more. Our team originally was called IMCERT, the International Medical Surgical Response Team. And we had 3 national teams, one on the East Coast out of Boston, one out of the South, out of Miami, and then the West Coast team out of Seattle. And then depending on where you lived within the country, you kind of attached yourself to a team. That has grown into now one national team, which is the trauma critical care team, which is the team that I continue to be on. I didn't really know about the team. And when I first became an EMT, I was really ready to join the team. And Mike said, Mikaela, just wait until you're a nurse. He said, this is a government job and there's nothing more challenging than switching roles in a government job. He said, just you're applying to nursing school, be patient is what he said, and apply when you're a nurse. And so I followed his advice. And right after Haiti happened is about the time in which my application process completed. And so the rest is kind of history from there. A lot of trainings, a lot of other different conferences I had attended. And then with COVID was really when my opportunities to deploy really ramped up. But back to your question, Mike was very, just gave his advice, whether solicited or not, but in a way where I always knew that he was looking out for my best interest. He always saw in me more than I saw myself. He always saw my potential, and I really, I miss that man, and I really value his, everything he taught me and guided me. I would say that both are very important at different times. I wouldn't have the experiences I have had without the education, whether that's my having gone through EMT school or nursing school. Like having those certificates and that degree has opened doors and allowed me to have the experiences. That being said, I think we all know that school doesn't teach you everything that you can possibly know. And there's definitely moments in which, regardless of my clinical setting, I've said, school didn't teach me this, but it gave me a good foundation. It taught me how to ask good questions. It taught me to be inquisitive and thoughtful and help my critical thinking. And so with that, as I've had more and more experiences, I continue to just draw and build on them. And so I think at this point so for the past, I'll say decade, I've been just drawing on more and more and more and more experiences that have really been transformational for me. And now I'm kind of looping back, now that I'm in graduate school, getting my master's in health administration, to kind of taking that next step of my graduate degree and thinking at a broader, more 10,000 foot view, and learning things that are not necessarily come organic to me. Medicine is always, I don't want to say easy, but come naturally to me, versus finance, accounting, statistics, and whatnot. They don't. So I'm basically now learning a different skill set, and I look forward to then taking that foundational skill set and then using it in the future. It's really realizing that you are capable of more than you think you are. I think with my job as a flight nurse, and then with the missions I've been on with my federal disaster team, you always think that you're only capable of X, and turns out you're capable of so much more than that, whether it's because you have to in the moment, or because you're willing to challenge and put yourself in a different position that maybe you don't have formal training on, but the situation requires that you step in and fill that position. I think I'm always amazed at myself and what you can get through. And it's not the single thing of, oh, I did it by myself, but people, when you surround yourself with really incredible people, those people also help coach you and mentor you, and you do the same for them. And I think that's really what has helped also be successful, is that collaboration with your teammates and everyone making sure that you are successful. And because we'll all be there at some point in time. I think whether it's you're in healthcare, or even if you're, working at a grocery store, especially with the pandemic, everyone's been faced with things where they are like, this was not what I signed up for, or this is not, the risk I signed up for. And I think as a society, we found ways to continue to function and accomplish things. And I think that's been really incredible. Definitely, it's been a huge strain and very challenging, but I think it just shows the amount of resiliency. I just hope that people are able to continue to, do self-care, while I feel like sometimes that may seem like an oxymoron, because we're definitely in the marathon and not the sprint. But to continue to dig in and find that resilience to get through to the other side of all of this. I'd always known that I wanted to get a master's degree in something, and it would have been natural for people to, and actually people assume that I would have gone to PA school, or as a nurse, gone to school get my nurse practitioner degree. But I just in my heart knew that it wasn't my calling, and I didn't know why. And part of what I also do with Airlift is I'm an outreach coordinator, in which I work with rural, marginalized communities to help understand, what are their limitations, provide education, liaise with them, provide LZ trainings, QA, QI metrics, and kind of then all the miscellaneous things that they may need to the best of our ability. And over the 8 years of doing that, what I realized is that I really enjoy and love making sure that people have that access. And there's all these ideas I have. And what I've learned is that I really want to have more, I want my voice to really shine and matter. And I say that I want to be more of one of the decision makers, and being able to make sure that these communities have that. And while I do believe that I have that at the level I am at currently, I know that if I want to have more influence over those decisions, then I need to then position myself to be able to have more influence. And so what I would like right now, it's kind of hard because I'm still kind of exploring all of the options that there are within executive leadership, but I do know that I want to be in a more formal leadership management position within my organization at Airlift. But with that, I would also like to have a more formal leadership role with my disaster team, whether that's as a deputy team commander or as a team commander later on down the road. Obviously, both have very high commitments, but the MHA degree allows for a little bit of what's the business like, what's the public health, and I have had a lot of experience of managing large groups with my disaster team. So, and then project management with my outreach role. So, I mean, those are kind of my very loose goals. It's not super granular yet, but I feel like I'm still mid in my career where I'm mainly looking to just open up doors and say yes more often. Historically, I've been really good at saying, oh, I've made this decision, and kind of been stuck on a path. And I think that I've allowed myself to miss opportunities that could have been great. So now going forward, it's not that I'm going to say yes for everything, but consider it more closely than maybe I have in the past, or even if it's not the thing I had in mind, that specific job, Is it something close that would get me to where I want to be? Or is it perhaps even a really just different kind of opportunity that would still be valuable and be fulfilling for my work? I would say 5 years ago, I never saw myself going back to grad school, being in a more formal executive leadership position. And as I've gone through my graduate school journey, and as my friend likes to tell me, she says, Mikaela, you're just in the process of finding your voice. And while I thought that was very cheeky of her to say, she's a retired physician and she's lovely. When I actually sit and reflect back at, all the work you have to do to, sell yourself so that grad school will even take you, whether you're applying for scholarships or whatever it is, that that idea of representation that you speak to is really what I've been missing in my life. I can't think of any Asian American woman who has mentored me throughout my career. And that I say that not because to be dismissive of those that have chosen to invest their time. I'm very thankful and fortunate for every individual who has looked at me and said, you have potential, you should do X, fill in the blank. But I wonder how would my path have been potentially different? Or would I have looked at my own self differently had I had more examples of, Asian American women or just women or any person of color or any ethnicity that I could look at and see myself in? I want, women, people who are, so I'm a first generation Korean American. And so I'm also adopted. So as an adoptee, as a woman, as an immigrant, all of those things, I want people to look at me and say, oh, I identify with her, even with this one piece, and that it is possible for me to do whatever it is that they want to do. I think that's really important because I think people need that.